Hello, everybody. Welcome to How to Get into Code Chrysalis. My name is Yan. I'm one of the co-founders of Code Chrysalis. And I'll be talking about how to get in, all about Code Chrysalis, answering any of your questions that you have tonight. Before we get started, feel free to use the chat or Q&A features to ask questions. I'll do my best to make sure that everyone's questions today are addressed. So without further ado, I just want to talk about what our agenda is going to be. So I'm going to be talking a bit about my background and how it ties into Code Chrysalis. I will be talking about some recent changes that have happened that we've made to our admissions process. And I'm going to be talking about what our admissions process looks like right now, what we look for. I'll answer a question that we get quite often, which is why we have such a stretched out admissions process. And I'll talk about how you can prepare. All right. So once again, hi to those that just joined us. My name is Yan. I'm one of the co-founders of Code Chrysalis. And I grew up in a very tech-heavy city. And I'm actually there right now. We're known for a few of these companies: SAP, Concur, Tableau, Expedia, and then you may have heard of some of our more famous companies like Boeing and Amazon and Microsoft. And so, yeah, I grew up in Seattle. It was a very tech heavy city. Like I felt like I was always listening and hearing about like all the crazy things that Microsoft was doing and all of that. But I never felt like I really belonged in tech. Um, and it wasn't just that it was all boys, but it was all like the really nerdy boys in my class. And while I was a nerd, I was not that nerdy. And so I always felt like tech was, something that wasn't really for me. And so in university, I just avoided STEM, anything science, tech, engineering, or math related. I tried really hard to avoid that because I just always felt like it wasn't, something that I would be interested in. And after graduation, I ended up going into finance because that was just the obvious career path to take. But when I was working in finance, I really didn't like it. Yeah, I had heard, about all of these like cool companies getting started in Silicon Valley. This was when Uber had just first started and people were still thinking like that's kind of a crazy idea. It was around that time. And I was really intrigued by all of these different companies popping up, how they were making lives better. And so I had all of these different business ideas that I realized were all required some kind of like technical product to be made, but I had no idea how to do any of that. So, long story short, I thought, well, if I want to leave my job and do something more interesting and meaningful, maybe start my own company, it might be a good idea to know a little bit more about tech since technology is really changing the world, right? So I started trying to learn how to code. In 2013, when I just started getting these ideas in my head, I had been thinking about like getting started coding, but I didn't actually get started until January of 2014. I made it my New Year's resolution for that year to learn how to code. So I made an account on Code Academy in January. This is like the first week of January I did that. And back then, Code Academy would email you every time you logged in. So I actually have a record of this. I didn't log in again to Code Academy until like a month and a half later. So February was the second time that I logged into Code Academy to try to attempt to learn how to code. And for a little while, it did not go very well for me. I kept like learning how to code really on and off. Like I would start and do something for like one weekend, and then I wouldn't do anything for 3 weeks after that. And then I'd have to restart the process all over again. So it's really frustrating cycle that I got stuck in. And it wasn't until May of 2014 when I was like, oh my gosh, I need to stop this madness of starting and stopping and then having to restart everything. And I'm just gonna sit down and actually learn how to code. So May of 2014 was when I really like willed myself to do coding on a more consistent basis. Um, and it was the next month where I actually finished this Code Academy course that I had been trying to do for the past few months. And it really just ramped up from there. I ended up quitting my job in August of 2014 to learn how to code full time. And in September of 2014, I got into a coding boot camp. And even though this was 6 years ago, at that time, there were not too many people going to coding boot camps. It was a very novel, very new thing. I didn't know anyone that had done this. And none of my friends knew, none of my family knew anyone that would like quit their job and go like do this boot camp. So it was a quite a risky, scary thing to do. But basically around like July and August of 2014, I decided like, I think I'm gonna try to do this. Like I don't like my job. I don't like where I'm headed in my job. And so, I really don't have too much to lose. So that's when I decided I would get into a coding boot camp, but I did. I ended up starting that in December of 2014. And the school that I went to was in San Francisco. They're still around. Um, and so that's when I started classes. And really, this is my first, experience what a boot camp was. In 2014, I was living in Singapore, and there was nothing like that anywhere in Asia at the time. And so this was like kind of the first time um, that I was really exposed to this concept of like, it is possible for a short-term program to help people make a career change. And I saw this firsthand because I ended up graduating from there in March. And a month later, I got an offer to start working. I got a few offers actually. And I chose a company that I really liked. And I started working the month after that in May of 2015. So that's my timeline. People always ask me about what that looks like. This is what my timeline, what my transition looks like for me. Um, and different people have, a different timeline. Some people can do this in much shorter time. Some people need a bit more time. But for me, it was pretty crazy it still is pretty crazy for me to think about the fact that I didn't really know anything. Like I didn't know the difference between Java and JavaScript. And then a year later, I was getting paid to write code. And if you don't know the difference between Java and JavaScript, don't worry about it. Like you'll find out that they're very, very different. And Java is not a nickname for JavaScript, as I had assumed back then. But yeah, just you can make this crazy shift in under a year. We've had students do this in even less time, but this is what my timeline looked like. And so when I, became a software engineer, I thought that my previous experience in finance was just, just thrown away. But in fact, it was the opposite. I found out that prior experience that I had, my non-technical experience, my background working in business, it actually mattered a lot, and it helped me in my new career as a software engineer. And this is because as a software engineer, you do a lot of other things besides coding. Coding is only one part of the job. A big part of the job is actually being able to collaborate with other people. And this becomes more and more true the more senior you get as a software engineer, I learned. The more senior of a software engineer you are, yeah, your technical skills are really sharp and good, but what separates senior engineers from other senior engineers is really like the soft skills, the ability to collaborate with lots of different types of people, work on a lot of different projects, and really understand what's happening. You also need to be good at communicating. Oftentimes, we have to communicate why something can't be done, or issues that might arise. So, really difficult technical topics. And I found that because I came from a completely non technical background, that I was pretty good at explaining this stuff. And I would say I was better than some of the other software engineers when it came to understanding my non technical colleagues. I also had to interview job applicants, and so that was really important for my company, as because the competition is really tough, and so yeah, I had to get people, make them feel comfortable so that they would perform their best, and then also get them excited about working at the company and not one of our competitors. Um, I had to also provide a lot of feedback to people, and so being able to communicate and provide kind feedback is important. And there's so much researching and learning that you do as a software engineer. And so, all of this stuff were just skills that I didn't know were required as a software engineer. And luckily, they were skills that I had and was able to build on. So, oftentimes, when people think of software engineers, they just think of technical skills, right? Like, what languages do you know? What technologies do you know? And software. And that's true. You absolutely need technical skills. But what I learned, and what a really big part of, how we came about with Code Chrysalis, is that for career longevity, to get those promotions, you need things like communication, autonomy, and empathy as well. And that's so much more true, like the longer that you've been in the industry. So we made that a big part of our mission. So the first bit of our mission is to graduate software engineers who are not just technically strong, but also have great communication skills, are autonomous, and are empathetic, right? Communication and autonomy, I talked about previously, right? You need to communicate with other people on the team. Autonomy, because tech just moves crazy fast. Um, and empathy, also, people forget, fortunately, but as software engineers, we build for other people, right? We are builders, we're makers, and we want to make sure that we empathize and understand other people, other people's challenges, and so we can help, be a part of the solution for people. So that's our first big mission. The second one is to just get more women interested in tech, and recruited into technical careers. And then we do a lot of community building as well, because I think innovation is created when you're mixing all different kinds of ideas and people and talents and skills. And so we want to create as much of an opportunity for that as possible. So we have three main courses. I'm going to be talking about the full-time software engineering bootcamp, the immersive bootcamp, which is what you're all here for. And so here's just a quick overview of it. I assume because you're here today that you already know quite a bit about this. You've looked at our website and whatnot. Course is 12 weeks. It's full-time, so you will not be able to have any kind of a job outside of it. We're really looking for people who can commit to, putting their all into building up these skills for the 3 months that they're with us. And this is what our curriculum looks like. And so I'll talk a little bit more about, of course, how to get in and all of that. But it's just an overview of the curriculum. The first 6 weeks of the course, which is here in green. This is where we give you like a huge breadth of like, here are all the things that you need to know to be a software engineer. The second half of the course is where you're really going deep into what you want to do. Our curriculum is in JavaScript, but we expect all of our students to leave the program knowing another language, and with also the ability to pick up other languages and technologies if they need to. Our students do tech talks. They also do something like something called polyglottal. So their polyglottal project. It's basically 1 week where we force everyone to pick another language, and they have to build something, build a full stack app in that time. And then, of course, we have our final projects, and this is where our students work on a team for some like large app. That's kind of their senior project, their culminating experience. Before I get to the next slide, I'll talk about outcomes as well. We get asked about this a lot, like what do we do to help students? So we do tons of things, whether students know it or not. Preparing our students for the job market starts at the very beginning of the course, but we make our students do pair programming and give presentations for all of their projects so that they can get comfortable using technical language. When you're learning, when you're making a career shift into another industry, when you're learning how to code, you're also learning the vocabulary and how to speak clearly in that language. So you're not learning just a programming language, you're also learning like all the vocabulary needed. And so we do a lot of focus into making sure that our students are clear communicators. We also kind of more towards the second half of the course start preparing our students more officially for the job hunt through helping them with resume and cover letter writing. We do things like, job hunting strategy, what to do, interview practice. So, how do you interview? What do the interviews look like for an engineer? What do you need to prepare for? How you succeed? And actually, throughout the course, we start our mornings off with an interview question, like a coding challenge. We call them code coffees. We really like our puns at Code Chrysalis. And so there are all of these algorithm challenges that are from, coding, like actual interviews from Google, Microsoft, Facebook, etc. The second half of the course, we also do things like salary negotiation. And in fact, we stick with our graduates. So after you finish the course, we do weekly check-ins with you to make sure that you are on top of it, that you're getting the support that you need. And we also do a lot of on-call salary negotiation. So we help our students make a fair ask for, more compensation or whatever they need. We also help with that. And so that leads to pretty good odds. So about 63% of our students are non-technical, which means that they came from completely non-technical backgrounds, like ballet dancers, teachers, etc. And what's special is they're in a course with people who are from technical backgrounds. So software engineers, developers, people who've been in the industry, people with computer science degrees, and we're able to get everyone jobs afterwards. This slide needs to get updated, I just realized. So we don't have 100% job placement within 6 months anymore. It's 98.5%, but still pretty high. And so our students make on average about 5.7 million yen. And that's significantly more than the average kind of junior software engineering salary. And this is for a plethora of reasons, but I think it boils down to the kind of respect that we've built in the industry. Companies have come back over and over again to hire our graduates. It's really special to be able to build that relationship with, companies around. And you can find all of our outcome statistics online. I will be popping that into the link to this into the chat so you can take a look. But we are a part of CIRR, which is the Committee on Integrity and Results Reporting. It's basically a group of the top coding boot camps in the world, and we've all agreed to collect, organize, and publish our graduate statistics in a very particular way. And we also have to get all of our data audited every year. So this data is very accurate and very clear. You can check it out. And yeah, I'll give you a link. There's even more stuff than this, so you can take a look at that. And yeah, our students find some pretty awesome jobs at great companies. So all right, I'm done with all that. Let's go to like what you're actually here for, which is what our admissions process looks like, some recent changes, what we look for, why it's so tough, and how you can prepare. So recent changes to our process. The first one, we got rid of a coding challenge. So we used to have a coding challenge as before you could even apply, we had a coding challenge there. And we got rid of it because it just wasn't doing what we needed it to do. We find that it was deterring people who had low confidence. And typically when people are thinking of making a career switch, people are naturally in like a low confidence, like scared state. And so we didn't want the coding challenge to kind of deter people. And it also just wasn't a good a good assessment of how people were actually doing. We also ended up making our admissions consultation meeting more official. So I'll talk about that in a sec, like right now, what our admissions process looks like. So right now you fill out and submit the application form. It's really simple, doesn't take very long to fill out. And no matter what stage you are at in your coding, learning to code process, we want you to apply as soon as you want to do the immersive. So if right now you're like, I want to do the immersive, but I've barely started learning how to code, that's okay. We want you to apply when you know you want to do the immersive, regardless of where your technical skill is at this point. And this is because we can help you navigate the early stages of coding, like learning how to code. And we will also let you know if your timeline is doable as well. And you'll also get to know what it's like working with us immediately. So when you're first learning how to code, it's super overwhelming because you just look up like learn JavaScript and it's like hundreds and hundreds of potential links that you could click on, right? And as a beginner, when you don't know very much, it can be really intimidating to know what to study and what not to. I face that as well, learning how to code. And so our admissions process is built in a way that we can kind of nudge you in the right direction. So that's why we want you to apply early. Also, we can let you know if your timeline is at all possible. So oftentimes we get people emailing us saying, hey, I want to do the February coding, boot camp, or I want to do the September one. Do you think I'll be ready in time? And we won't know that until you actually apply and we start, talking to you more deeply and working with you. And that way, when we're doing our checks to see where you are technically, we can also track your progress and let you know, like, hey, if you want to do the January boot camp, you're going to need to ramp up your learning a bit more in order to make it. Or like, hey, you're on the right track, you're good. So yeah, apply as soon as possible. And you'll also know what it's like working with us. You'll get to figure out if this is really what you want. So, sorry, sorry about that. So after you have after you fill out the application, that's when we we schedule you for an admissions consultation meeting. And so the first meeting that you have with us, we go over what you should be expecting in our technical check-ins. So like what the admissions process looks like. We will also talk about how to prepare and what to prepare. And of course, we will be talking with you about whether or not your timeline and goals are realistic. So, and, we'll listen to what your goals are, and we'll let you, we'll help you decide whether or not, we're even a good fit for you. And after that, after we get to know you a bit more, and you're good to go, we schedule you for your first technical check-in. And if you are feeling ready, so if you're already coding and you're like, I want to get started, you can actually request to jump directly into a technical check-in during the admissions consultation meeting. But this is entirely optional. So if you're not feeling ready for the technical, then what you can do is schedule for one later on. So the third step is you have technical check-ins with us until you pass. During the technical check-in, you will pair programs. You'll be programming with our admissions coach, and this happens all remotely. And so what our admissions coach will do is they'll lead you through a series of coding challenges that increase in difficulty. So we start you off with something really easy, see where you are, and then we kind of like see how far we can take you. And so pair programming just means that you're going to be telling our remote admissions coach exactly what to type and do. All right. And if you don't meet our requirements, our technical standards, we give you feedback and we reschedule you for another technical check-in, generally after about 2 to 3 weeks, but it really depends on the person. So this is why we want you to interview as soon as possible, because, no matter where you are, we can help you figure out where you need to go. Just schedule your interviews early. And there's really no limit to how many check-ins you can have. What we want to see is progress and effort, that you want to do this, that you want to learn how to code, and you want to go to Code Chrysalis. So yeah, we just want to see some progress between each check-in. So during the technical check-in, the coding challenges will have instructions and tests. And the tests are usually dependent on the type of challenge. So some challenges won't have tests just because of the way that they are. And so this is an example of a basic coding challenge. So this is one of the easier ones, on the easier side of things. I'll linger on this so you can take a look. You'll see that at the top here, we've got instructions for you. You write your code where this comment is, and on the bottom are some really simple tests to make sure that things are working. So this is an example of just a more basic coding challenge. And here's an example of a harder coding challenge, something a little bit tougher. And this one is more focused on higher order functions. So can you write a function that takes in a function as an input? So we're testing you on a few more things. And then after you pass, you get accepted. Some people, it takes them, only a couple tries or one try to get in. That's really rare. Usually it takes people a few tries to get to the level where we need them to be, to get to a level where we feel like they can be successful in the course. So after you get accepted, it's not over yet. You have to pay. We have a deposit, to non-refundable deposit, just to save your spot in the class and make sure you're committing. And once that's done, then you will receive what's called pre-course. So before I talk about pre-course, let me just review this admissions process. So fill out the application form. You have an admissions consultation meeting. You have technical check-ins necessary, and then you get accepted. So before I go on, are there any questions so far? If you have any questions, please write them in the Q&A, or you can also write them in the chat. But if there's any questions about what we went over just now, please let me know. Okay, if there are none so far, I'm going to talk about what we look for. So we look for three things. We look for technical skills, non-technical skills, and then your goals. So for technical skills, we look for an understanding of language syntax and code structure. We look for familiarity with data types, and we want you to be able to break down compound, complex tasks into more logical steps. And here is the list of the specific technical things that we look for, that we potentially maybe, checking on in our technical check-in. I'll sit on this so you all can take a good look. All right. So the questions that we're asking, that we're trying to answer when we are assessing you is, how is your grasp of basic programming concepts? Can you write some basic algorithms? How do you approach a hard problem? And how do you deal with concepts that you're not certain about? Okay. We also look for non-technical skills. So we want to know and figure out if you'll be able to work well with people, and if you're a good communicator, right? And also how open you are to feedback. You'd be surprised how often, someone will be doing a technical check-in with our admissions coach, and our admissions coach will provide a bit of feedback, and sometimes people might react a bit negatively, and that's not a good sign for us. And we also want to make sure that you're good with responding to frustration, right? If you're getting stuck on something, we want you to be able to not, be like super, super frustrated and still be easy to work with. And for our coding challenges, what we try to do is we try to figure out where you are and ask you something maybe a little bit more challenging, something a little bit more difficult than what you're used to. We want to see how you react. We want to see what you do. How are ways that you deal with these new challenges. And we want to know what your goals are. So we want to make sure that you want to do this for the right reason. Code Chrysalis is pretty tough. Our immersive bootcamp is a rigorous course. And so we want to make sure that everyone is there for the right reasons. And we want to make sure that your expectations for this course are realistic. So if you're expecting us to change your life dramatically, that's probably not going to happen. I think we're pretty wonderful, but we can't do things like fix your marriage or fix your family life, or help you with any personal issues that you're having, unfortunately. So these are just examples of, these are just some bullet points of what successful applicants look like for us. You're able to approach new concepts with a positive attitude. You're able to figure out our exercises with very little guidance and help. And we want to know that you are very likely to be able to complete pre-course, so our pre-course material, with minimal instructor intervention and help. And we want to see just a positive attitude. We want to see motivation and ambition, and passion for learning. And we want to make sure that you're going to be able to figure things out. So we have our tough admissions process. Our admissions process is tough because coding is not for everyone. I know that it's very trendy right now to like learn how to code. And some people might think like, oh, because I don't like my career right now, maybe I'll do coding. So we want people to know whether or not they actually like coding before they commit to a 3-month program, right? You want to know that you actually like it, or else it's not going to be a great experience for you. We also only have 3 months together. So what we try to do for Code Chrysalis, because our course is only 3 months, we would love to make it longer, but it's only 3 months. Whatever we think people can learn on their own, we have them learn on their own. So that includes the admissions, making sure that people are at a particular technical level. And then even after, during our pre-course, whatever we think people can do on their own, we're putting it in there. So that way, the 3 months that you're with us are very, very efficient. We're working on things that are much more difficult for you to learn well on your own. And of course, our admissions process is very much of an investment, right? You're taking time off from work. You're also taking time away from your family, from taking vacations or breaks or whatnot. Of course, our course, it costs a lot. We are 1.32 million yen. So there's also the money investment. And not only that, like our students have to be able to support themselves for the 3 months of the course, right? Their living costs. So it's also a big financial investment for people. And lastly, like energy, right? We put a lot of energy into the course, into helping our students. And so there's all kinds of investment being made on our students' end and on our end. And we want to make sure that everyone is getting what they need out of the course. And of course, your classmates have also made this investment. So because Code Chrysalis is very collaborative, every person in class has to be responsible and respectful of their classmates. And so, it would just be really tough. It would be really crappy if you're in a class and, you have made this investment, you've like quit your job, you've put your money down, you've like kind of stopped your social life in order to become a software engineer. And then there's someone else in this class who's like, whatever, I don't care. And it would suck even more if you're on a team with that person, right? Because that person's going to impact your experience in the course. And so we just want to make sure that everyone in each of our classes is really aware, is really cognizant of the investment that they've made so that they can help their own investment succeed. And also the investment that their classmates have made so that they're not impacting that negatively in any way. And yeah, we also are really committed to outcomes, not just helping our students find jobs, but, at the end of the course, what our students can do. And in order to get there, we need, buy-in from our students as well, that they've fully committed, that they've made this investment of, time, money, and their own like personal energy into our course. So I talked a little earlier, but at the end of the course, we have something called Demo Day. And this is where our students get to like share the cool things that they've done. And these photos are obviously from pre-coronavirus days. Nowadays, we do all of our demo days online. But if you're curious about what our students can do after the course, like what their technical level is, you can find the recordings of all of our demo days on our YouTube channel. So definitely go and check that out. So you'll just get a good feel for what kinds of projects that people are doing. And these are just examples of more recent projects that we've had. You'll see that a lot of our projects are done in technologies that we don't teach at all. So, the two on the left were done using Dart and Flutter, which we don't cover. And then Mystic Tear on the bottom right was done using C Sharp, like they did an AR app on Unity. So that's a really, that's like a big goal of this course, is to get our students being autonomous and being adventurous and like, deciding for themselves, like, hey, I want to build a mobile app, even though this course is done in JavaScript and focused on web apps. Yeah, just really proud of what our students are able to achieve. And yeah, just success stories. It's pretty cool to be able to see students go from having no coding experience to becoming successful software engineers. And in fact, for Stefano, Go, and Alex, all three of them had not coded before Code Chrysalis. Well, I met Alex we did like an intro to coding course a few years ago, and he was one of the students, and it was his first time coding. And it was cool seeing him go from that to becoming a software engineer. Yeah, also Kimiko was doing customer service type of stuff and came to one of our events and decided to change her career to being a software engineer. So it's really great seeing that, like, people from all kind of walks of life are able to make a career change. So how can you prepare? Of course, apply. Use our admissions process as a guide. Use our admissions process as a guide and focus on the necessary topics. There's a blog post that I wrote about how to get into Code Chrysalis. And in it, it has all of like the topics that you need to know. And I'll post that link in a sec as well. Also, we give a lot of feedback because we, of course, want you to do Code Chrysalis. We want you in the program. So we do our best to make sure that you're getting that we're giving you feedback. We're giving you, things that you can improve on. So please take it and improve on it. And be patient with yourself. Learning how to code. If you came from, a completely non-technical background, learning how to code is a totally new way of thinking, I find. And as adults, I think we forget how difficult it is to learn something like totally different for us. And that, I remember being always just so tired as a child coming home from school. And I realize now it's because, like, when you're a kid, you're just always getting like your brain bombarded with new ways of thinking and all of that. And that doesn't happen for us as much as adults. And so it can be quite jarring when you're first getting started. Just getting used to that, like, feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm like not getting it, or like I'm really struggling. So be patient with yourself. Everyone learns at a different speed. And yeah, be patient because this stuff is pretty hard. And make time for yourself. Forgive yourself for not picking things up as fast as you feel like you should be picking them up. During the technical check-in itself, please, please, please have a stable connection to the internet. It makes it really difficult to interview you if we can't hear you or see you. We want you to conduct your check-in from a desktop or a laptop computer. Please, no phones. And we need to make sure that your microphone is on, that it's clear and that it's working. We ask that you not do your technical interview in a cafe, because we want to make sure that background noise is very low, or there's none. And we want to be able to see your face. So during the check-in, you're going to need to have your camera on. And so if you don't have any of these things, we're just going to reschedule you for a check-in, because we want to make sure that you are prepared to be successful as possible. So here is a layout of the Code Chrysalis journey. So first you apply, of course, depending on, how much time you have, your experience level, how often you're studying. Um, there's an interview process which can take anywhere from, less than a week to longer than 6 months. After that, after you reach our technical standard, you're accepted and confirmed. And that's when you get to start pre-course. So pre-course is released about 2 months before the course begins. And it is mandatory prep work. So it's stuff that you have to finish before you're allowed to begin. It's projects and assignments, and you also have to pass a few exams. And so after you finish pre-course, that's when our immersive boot camp begins, and that's 3 months, of course. And then there's the job hunting portion. So that can take anywhere from 1 to 6 months for people. So that's what the Code Chrysalis journey looks like. And yeah, those are all the slides that I have for tonight. We have some upcoming events that I really would love for you to join. The first one is our API night. So that happens next Friday. So end of next week, next Friday. And that's when our students are just a little more than halfway through the course. They're on like week 7. And so if you're wondering like what our students are able to do halfway through the course, check out the API night. So I actually don't know what projects the students will be doing because we haven't started it. So the API night, it's basically the end of a 4-day long hackathon that our students do. And we're doing it with Rakuten Rapid API. They've been really kind and sponsoring us in the past as well. And basically our students hack on their technologies, figure out how to use their technologies in like an interesting way. And then they present it back to an audience, to the Rakuten Rapid API team. So that's pretty cool. And then we also have demo day. So our students will be graduating at the end of September. And that's when they'll also be showing off their senior projects, which they haven't started yet because they're not at that point. But if you want to see, what exactly your students are able to do at different points throughout the course, there's really no better way than checking this out. And these will all be live streamed on YouTube and Facebook, and yeah, you'll be able to find the recordings if you're not able to attend them. So yeah, that's the end. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them in the chat or in the Q&A. Yeah, you can find us on the internet. At Code Chrysalis on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We recently stopped doing school visits again because of the coronavirus situation in Japan. But we can give you a virtual tour of the school if you want. So we'll like take our laptop around and show you. Please sign up for them. We've got some questions coming in, so I'll get to those right now. The first one is, let's see. Is it possible to ask questions that we can answer later in the web? Oh, yes. So feel free to ask questions whenever. Someone asked, do I need to be good at math? So no, you actually don't need to be good at math. I am not particularly good at math. I was so scared of math growing up, and I feel like it's just a big misconception that you have to be good at math in order to be a software engineer. That's not the case. I am a great example of that. Let's see, got another question. Let's see. Another question is, how would you say the industry in Tokyo has changed since Code Chrysalis started? In addition, would you say the job market has changed for better or for worse during COVID-19? So that's a great question. So the first one, would you say the industry in Tokyo has changed? Yes. Oh my goodness. So Code Chrysalis, we've been around for about 3 years now. And in those 3 years, the change has been significant, mostly in terms of just opportunities that like job opportunities for people. There have been so many more companies that have started up that have gotten to a point where they're hiring. And that's quite exciting, I think. I know people say, Japan moves at a very glacial pace, but I would say within like the tech community, it's gone pretty fast. There's a lot of new, startup players. And then we're also seeing large companies trying to change the way that they're doing stuff, and hiring more software engineers. Um, how has the job market changed during COVID? That's a really great question. So, of course, the job market has gotten a bit tougher during COVID, because, entire industries are basically not functioning right now, right? So travel is out, and for like restaurants and things, it's like just barely hanging in there. So like anything entertainment related as well, if it's like an in-person entertainment type thing, it's also being affected. So we did see that impact the market significantly. On the other hand, the nice thing about being a software engineer is that you're not tied to one industry, right? Like if you go into the travel industry, you're kind of stuck in there forever. And so that's kind of the saving grace of being a software engineer, is like what we saw is like there were these industries that were, not doing well. And those software engineers have basically migrated to other places. And what we're seeing right now that we're a few months into this COVID mess, companies that are doing well are starting to pivot and hire more. So, there are some winners in COVID, companies that have kind of position themselves to do really well, and we're seeing them hiring. So overall, I would say the job market has not changed quite as dramatically for software engineers. We had a class, an immersive class, graduate at the end of March. So they graduated like right into this whole coronavirus mess, and their statistics are totally normal. And in fact, they actually had a slightly higher than average salary than the previous classes. Um, so yeah, I would say that the job market has, we've seen it get impacted, but it's not quite so bad. Another question. Um, So, as a potential student from overseas, would you say that coming over to Japan without a working visa is a deterrent for companies looking to hire you? So, right now, because of COVID, of course, like all of that work visa stuff has stopped. But outside of COVID, so pre-COVID, it was not a big deterrent. So it's actually pretty easy for companies to get people work visas. As long as you have a bachelor's degree, it makes it pretty easy to get a work visa. And so you need a bachelor's degree because that's what the immigration policy requires. Like the immigration people require that in order to get you the like humanities/engineer visa, work visa that you would need. So yeah, it's not a huge deterrent. I would say like, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but a good amount of our students each year are from overseas. Of course, not right now because of coronavirus, but before that, a good amount were, and they have been able to find jobs just fine. And another question, if your end goal is to find employment in Japan post Code Chrysalis, do you think it'd be beneficial to do the course remotely from another country, or is it best to wait until one is available to? So I would say like during COVID, uh, doing it remotely, is a good idea. Um, are you missing out on a lot doing it remotely? Um, not too much right now, to be honest, because the only reason you would want to be in Japan is to do networking. But there is no networking happening in person. Like it's all remote right now, right? No one wants to go to any in-person, events and shake hands with people. So if you're wondering like how you might want to fit Code Chrysalis into kind of like your end goal of working in Japan, you might consider doing the course remotely right now. So if you don't know, you can do the immersive course either in person or remotely. So our course, we don't make a distinction between our remote students or our in-person students. So right now we have a remote class and we have right now we have an immersive class and we have a few students doing it remotely from Mexico, from Germany, and from other parts of Japan. Um, so it might be worth it doing it remotely and then just waiting for the travel bans to get lifted in order to come to Japan in person. But depending on where you are for this person who asked this question, because we don't know how long this COVID mess might take, it might be good to just do the immersive, find a job where you are for the time being, and wait for these travel bans to get lifted. And then you'll also have that work experience from outside of Japan. If you are coming to Japan already with work experience, it makes it even easier to find a job here. Another question. Let's see. Is there a major I have to choose once accepted at our boot camp? So we're not a university. We don't have majors. You kind of learn what we have you learn, and then towards the end, you get to choose what you want to focus on. Another question, do you think proficiency in Japanese language is important to land a job in any computer field in Japan? So I don't know about other computer fields, but specifically for software engineering, definitely proficiency in Japanese gives you more options, right? So there's only a few companies, or not a few, there's quite a few, quite a lot of them. But there are far more companies that are only hiring people who speak Japanese, right? Because they're not able to hire non-Japanese speakers. And so if you speak Japanese, you just have a greater choice in companies to apply for. However, we actually see a difference in people who speak Japanese fluently and people who don't speak Japanese fluently in terms of their income levels. So it's interesting because people who speak Japanese, so native Japanese speakers or non-native but like highly proficient business level Japanese speakers, they tend to have a lower salary than our graduates that don't speak any Japanese. And this is because a lot of Japanese companies tend to pay a little less than what like companies that are able to hire foreigners are able to pay. So that's an interesting thing that we've noticed in our statistics. Let's see. Another question, how do you support the students remotely? Do tutors assist the students in real time? So we don't have tutors. We don't call our instructors tutors. So the remote students, it's the same thing. So they are in class. They're in class at the same time as our in-person students. They listen to the same lectures. They work with our in-person students as well. There's really no difference. You're just, you're doing all the things, but you're just not there in person. So yeah, we make no distinction. So in our course, we have pair programming. So you're always working with someone else on something. And so we pair up our in-person students with our remote students oftentimes. It's all very random. And yeah, you do get assistance from our instructors. There's always we make sure that everyone, even our in-person students, that everything goes through Slack. And we think this is, really important, being able to juggle being remote and also having on-site, because our world is turning into that, right? Because of coronavirus, more and more people are in work situations where some of their colleagues are in the office and some of their colleagues are remote. And so we really want to make sure that our students are prepared for that situation and know how to navigate that. Um, so if you attend classes remotely, would you be expected to attend class from 9 a.m. to 6 a.m.? Yes. So everything's the same. You're expected to be in class, or well, online, at 9 a.m. You do all the activities, and you end at 6 p.m. Um, do we accept scholarships from governments like from Hello at Work? So we are actually MEDI certified. So our English immersive class is certified by METI, which is like the Ministry of Economics, Industry, or Trade and Industry. And so that has like subsidies attached to it. If you have more questions about that, I don't have the details off the top of my head, but our admissions team does, because they speak Japanese. So please email us at admissions@codechrysalis.io, and they'll be able to answer any of your questions. Another question that we have, um, why have you changed the admissions test from coding challenge on website to more interview based? Why have you increased the tuition during COVID by nearly 30%? So the first question is, why have we changed the admissions coding challenge? So I mentioned this earlier, but the coding challenge was not doing what we needed it to do. We wanted to make sure that when people talked to us, they reached, a particular level. But we found that regardless of the coding challenge, um, they, applicants would not be at the level that they would need to be. And so the coding challenge was just an unnecessary kind of addition. And so, yeah, sometimes we found that like students would be at a pretty good technical level, but somehow they weren't able to get through the coding challenge for whatever reason. And so it was also a difficult piece of technology to maintain for us. And we felt like people had so many questions. It was better to just address them face to face. And we actually did not increase tuition during COVID. We increased tuition in the beginning of the year. And this was because there's so much that we provide on top of the 3 months. So if you are coming to Code Chrysalis, you are not just signing up for a 3-month course, you're signing up for a lifelong partnership. So before the 3 months begins, you are already working with us. During the admissions process, we are basically providing free tutoring for people. During pre-course, you are essentially getting trained up to the level that our other competitors graduate students at. So before you even enter our program, we have already gotten you to a very high level of technical knowledge and technical skill. And the program really pushes you beyond what you currently maybe think you're capable of doing. And then after that, we have lifelong career support. So our students who have graduated, years ago, now that they're looking to change their jobs, they come back to us we do mock interviews for our graduates. We help them negotiate their salary. In the past, we've helped negotiate, one of our alumni, his second job was at Google, and we helped him negotiate his Google salary. And we do that for all of our alumni. So the program that you are getting, what you're signing up for, is far beyond just the 3 months. If you break it down in hourly, if you're just taking, the 3 months and the pre-course, and you break down into like an hourly amount, we are actually the cheapest course on the market. Do you support graduates finding jobs abroad as well? Yes, of course. So we help our graduates find jobs anywhere that they would like to find a job. So we've helped students find jobs in the US. If you're not American, though, getting a job in the US is impossible right now because of immigration restrictions. By the way, for those of you wondering, we helped our students find jobs in Canada. Where else? Most of the time, students want to find a job in Japan. Very rarely do we have people wanting to find a job overseas. But yes, we help in every way. Was wondering if you've given any thought to doing a part-time course that's half-day sessions for 24 weeks. So yes, so we have. We will likely do them sometime maybe next year. We have shied away from doing um, part-time courses in the past because what we've noticed from other programs when they've done part-time courses, the quality drops significantly. So we did not want that for our course. We are absolutely committed to outcomes, right? If we weren't committed to outcomes, we would just take all your money and let you into the course. But we're really into outcomes. We want to make sure that each one of our students is successful afterwards. And so, yeah, we've been thinking about how to put together a part-time program for quite a while, and how to put together one that will get us the same sort of outcomes as our full-time program. And so we'll probably be doing that sometime next year, hopefully when COVID is a little less crazy and when we have more energy and time in the staff to do so. Um, Same schedule for the immersive course if you do it remotely. Yes. So if you do our immersive course remotely, it's exactly the same as doing it in person. Like there's no change. You get no, special treatment. You are treated as just another student. So I think that's, oh, I have some more. Um, So, and I have a question. Do you need to attend the Code Chrysalis event? Uh, I'm sorry, what event do you mean, for the person who asked that question? And then I have another question. Are classes only from Monday to Friday and no weekends? Yes, so classes are Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. There are no weekends because I think people would die if we did that. However, you should absolutely keep all of your weekends free because you have uh, a lot of homework. So the weekends are uh, usually our students are at the school or online working on stuff on weekends. So there's not really, a break. Um, do you need to attend? So the coding from zero event, they're not mandatory. So just go to those if you want to learn coding. You don't need, there's no mandatory event that you need to go to attend the immersive. Um, all right, I think, was that all the questions? Oh, there are more questions. Let me see. Um, so, uh, so someone asked, I want to take your courses, but I'm not eligible. Can you do anything? So, if you are 12 years old, unfortunately, we don't have any courses for teenagers. This course is only for adults. Another question is, can students come to, let's see, can students come to school during the weekend? Yes. So for our on-site students, our campus, our offices are open so that they can come to school even on weekends. So if you want to use our super fast Wi-Fi, if you want to, work with other people, our offices are open on the weekends. So you'll be able to do that. Um, yeah, that's I think those are all the questions that I have. I'm just gonna go through and make sure that I got everything. Oh, question. Have there been statistics of dropout rates of the course? Um, so I don't have that number off the top of my head. Because of all the screening that we do, we have been pretty good about stopping that, and making sure that students who do the course are there to succeed. There are occasions where we have asked students to repeat, so to go to the next class, but it doesn't really happen. How do I maximize the chance of being a student of good caliber? That's a great question. So, uh, our best students, the ones that do the absolute best, have always been good communicators and they've asked a lot of questions. They've also been people who have been overwhelmingly positive. So, these are people who when they are frustrated with something, they don't show it. Like when there's a challenge, they, look at it with a smile on their face. They're kind of excited by challenges. And these are students who are also not afraid of failure. And that's a really difficult, I think, place to be in, right? Where you're not afraid of looking stupid or making a mistake. Our best students have been ones who just like not cared if they, asked a stupid sounding question. They just asked the question, right? And so uh, it's usually, I find it really interesting, but um, we can basically see a correlation between the positivity of a student and how well they do. So the students that have really good energy, that are really positive, even if they came to us with a lower technical level, typically they have been able to get the better jobs, to have the more impactful career because of like this growth mindset that they have. And so that's kind of, how you can be like a good student. Our best students have been overwhelmingly just like um, enjoyable people to be around. And they've looked at failure not as failure, but as an exciting learning opportunity. um, so yeah, that's my answer to that question. Another one, I'm watching Khan Academy tutorials. Do you think it will be help to get accepted to your boot camp? Will it be enough? So just watching coding and reading code is not the same as coding. You will need to learn how to code in order to enter the program. So the best way to know if you are at the level needed is to apply and schedule an admissions consultation and a check-in with our career coaches. That's I can't really say like um, that just from watching a few videos that you'll be able to get in or not. Very likely not. You're going to actually need to learn how to code. Um, Another great question. Do I need to be creative and brimming with ideas to become a good software engineer? I love programming, but I wouldn't say I have a lot of ideas for apps, etc., that I would like to develop. I'm thinking specifically about the demo day or during the course when we need to come up with some kind of application or idea. So you don't need to be creative, brimming with ideas. And I think our class is usually quite diverse in the types of people. So when you're placed into teams, we take into account who has ideas and who like maybe doesn't have any ideas, or doesn't have as many. So we try to kind of balance out the team like that. So you'll always be kind of put with someone who maybe is able to generate a lot of ideas. But it really, you don't have to be like, always coming up with ideas in order to be a good engineer. Um, I think there's many ways that you can be an impactful engineer. And in any, I think, successful organization or team, there's always like, the person with the idea, but just because you have the idea doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. You also need the people who are able to take that idea and make it happen, right? And I think that's a lot of what software engineers typically do. Is they are kind of like the people who can make these things happen. And that's I think pretty exciting. It's fun to be able to make stuff, right? So I got another question about the approximate tuition. So the tuition is 1.32 million yen. You can find that information also on our website. All right, so I think that was all the questions. If there are no more, then thank you all so much for coming today. Um, yeah, I'm happy to answer these. I just really quickly, I will uh, give you guys some links. So the first one is how to get into Code Chrysalis. And this is a blog post that I wrote about like what are the things that you need to do to learn. Here you are. There you go. And then another one is you can see our outcomes data, so our statistics on SIR's website. So you can see that here. And lastly, we also have an outcomes page. So if you want to learn more about like, what our students end up doing, check out our outcomes page. And of course, our YouTube channel. So if you want to see just recordings of our previous students and the projects they've done, bit about their backgrounds, etc., we've recorded all of those and they're on YouTube. So check those out. It's a lot of content because we've been recording a lot of things. So check those out. They'll probably give you a better idea for, if you're wondering what can you do after 3 months. So yeah, I think the best way to understand us is to really just see what our students are able to do, and to also like get to know us a bit more. So please check out those links that I provided. I'll also be emailing those out. And if you have any questions at all, please check out admissions at codechrysalis.io. Feel free to email us if you have any questions. I see the emails that come through, so I'm happy to answer. Those. Without keeping you for much longer, I think we're basically at the end of our time together. So if there are no more questions, then thank you for coming. And I hope to see you all apply. Please apply. We would love to get to know you more and see what we can do to help you achieve your goals. Thank you.